In order to make my life easier and give myself a vague hope of keeping up with the sheer number of council meetings, on some of the panels I'm going to do a very short summary. And the other evening was the policy panel, so this is going to be the shortest summary I can manage of what happened in that meeting. Organisations do claim to love their acronyms and abbreviations, and the council is no different, but the policy panels were particularly satisfying. They started the year with the start of the alphabet. Yes, they've got the ABCD. I will admit it did take me a moment or two to work out what on earth they were talking about, but ABCD stands for Asset-Based Community... wasn't desperation, was it? No, development, that's it, although it could be desperation. Basically what that means is the council have realised we've got no money, we're going to have to rely on the general public to do things. Now, I know on the surface that seems really irritating because we're already paying a lot of council tax and we're going to have to pay more to get less, and now, to top it off, we're going to end up doing everything ourselves. I know that is irritating, but it is practical. It's the only real way forward because they don't have the money at all, and if we want things to improve, we are going to have to do it ourselves. But as Councillor Julie Young pointed out, they're really not making it easy. The example she gave was a local community in a disadvantaged area that had set up planting vegetables in verges for the local community. The council said yes, and then turned around and said, but could you give us £350 to sort it out legally, please? Now, although Councillor King isn't on this panel, he put in an appearance and agreed if the public are going to do more for the council needs to get out of the way and allow them to do it. So they're going to do everything they can to make it easier for us to do the things that they were probably supposed to be doing, which is good, really good. So it's a simple and obvious solution to the problems. And then the council officers got hold of it. They have spent $35,000 on training, and out of the three of us that watched last night, none of us are entirely sure what that $35,000 on training was on, and none of us are willing to go back and watch it again. It wasn't the most interesting of meetings, let's put it that way, which is why I'm doing a shortish summary. And of course, the moment the council get hold of something, simple ideas get very complicated. Once again, Councillor Julie Young pointed out they've spent £35,000 on training and that doesn't seem to have achieved anything. But not only have they spent $35,000 on training that we're really not sure what they've been trained for exactly because we lost the will to live listening to it, they've done something called asset mapping. Whatever that is, it's taken them 3 months to do each report. Again, I was slightly losing the will to live at this point. Key points that they've discovered doing all this mapping is that we have 26 diverse communities. 44% of these diverse communities do not want any professional help, they want connection with other people. They've done lots of reports and it takes them on average 3 months to produce each report. And when asked where they were going with this, the lady'd only been at the council for 6 months and she didn't know. Next up on the agenda was a gentleman called James who came in and told them about the procurement partnership that the council were considering signing up to. Except he didn't say that. The way he said it made it sound like a done deal, which ruffled an awful lot of feathers. The idea behind the procurement partnership, I don't recall the exact example they gave, so I'm going to make one up myself. But say, for example, Braintree Council needed to buy sinks. And so did Colchester Council, Essex County Council and various other councils. Rather than each council employing someone to find the best deal on sinks, if they all worked together in one group, they could have one person find all the sinks for all of the councils. Now that makes good sense. They can get a better deal with the number of sinks they buy, and it's only one person's time looking for sinks rather than everybody. The flaw to this, of course, is they may not all want sinks, they may not like the sinks the person found, and also they may not need the sinks at the same time. But that aside, it's a good idea. It's a great way of saving money, basically, and streamlining what essentially are very similar businesses. But once again, Julie Young had some very good points to make on it. She cited an incident that they got somebody to do cladding, I think she said it was, from Scotland because they were the cheapest. Whereas she was saying we should not always go for the cheapest, we should go for social value, so i.e. employ people locally. She didn't feel this was a democratic way to do things, and neither did a lot of the other councillors. So this is quite a big change from Colchester having its own procurement officers to suddenly working within a whole team and Colchester not having a direct say on things, or that's how they felt it came across. Then a lady called Sam came in and clarified, look, we haven't signed on the dotted line yet, we're just discussing it. Then Councillor King came back to try and smooth the troubled waters. Apparently these types of big decisions are meant to go to the policy panel first, or certainly governance, and be scrutinised and then go to the cabinet. So they've just come in and bypassed all of these other panels and gone straight for the we need to save money, let's all club together to do it. So realising this hadn't been pitched well, Councillor King offered the policy panel an opportunity to have a meeting just solely on this topic. So that's the long and the short of it. So what was interesting was Councillor Julie Young mentioned when she said this isn't a democratic way of making decisions, she said it's a good job Sir Bob Russell isn't here tonight, because he usually accuses the officers of running the council and not the councillors. That's the exact conclusion we at Colchester Council Watch had come to after we'd been watching their meetings for a while, that actually it's the officers that have much more control over the councils than the councillors do. Now obviously we're on the outside looking in, none of us have any interest in politics whatsoever, so we're coming at it with very fresh eyes, and also because we haven't a clue what's going on, we're having to make a lot of guesses. So it was very interesting that Sir Bob Russell, who does know how everything works, because obviously he's been in Colchester Council, he's been an MP, and he sees behind the scenes, so the fact he has come to that conclusion is like, oh, okay, we weren't far off. It only seems to be the councillors that think they're running it. What was also interesting is this gave them a very small taster of what devolution is going to be like. So if you haven't come across devolution yet, it's a bit of a Trojan horse. The government say they're going to give more control and power to local government. But what they want you to do is not just give all autonomy to Colchester. They want Colchester to buddy up with other councils and form one big council, a bit like they've done with the police, where they amalgamate various forces into one. They want to do the same with the councils and have a mayor ruling over this entire area. So a bit like the Mayor of London. We can all see how well that is going. And councils are being funnelled towards this because the government are removing funding that they've been relying on. All the councils have financial issues. But if they sign up for devolution, there's some big piles of money. I think it's something like 30 million a year for 30 years or something, which the way councils burn through money, that actually isn't anywhere near the amount it sounds. So they're getting steered very firmly towards devolution, and amalgamating certain departments is tiptoeing towards it already. And it's interesting how uncomfortable that made them all feel. Well, get used to it, because if devolution happens, you're going to have less and less control and less powers. So that's why it's a Trojan horse. It does the opposite to what it says on the tin. It promises us more power, more autonomy, but actually the reverse will probably happen. It's very difficult to control lots of little tiny councils everywhere, but if you had the country divided up into, I don't know, however many, 12 or 20 different mayors that you had complete control over, then it makes it much easier. Now, the current administration are very pro-devolution, possibly because of the financial situation, I don't know, or they do believe in the politics of it. But they're thinking they're going to retain control because it will be a Colchester mayor that runs everything. I have a sneaking suspicion it won't be. As soon as that deal is signed, they will have no power over what happens. So watch this space. We continue to live in very interesting times. So much for this being a short summary. Still shorter than the 2.5 hours I sat through.